I'll tell you what, it goes all the way back. I don't know if you're aware, but I played baseball. I was a pitcher. And probably halfway through my professional career, typical high school kid, just did what coaches told me to do. When I got to college, the coaching was better. So what they told me to do was more specific to me. But when I got to pro ball, at that time, there was very little help from anybody in pro ball. You're a pro now, you should figure it out yourself. So I started the search, who can help me help everything I do get better. And there was a huge lack of information. So I just started looking and got lucky and found motion analysis as a science and got deeper into functional strength training. And obviously I went back to school. I got a number, 3 advanced degrees to reinforce it. And so lucky that I started doing it, because by the time my pitching career was done, technology had started really supporting what needed to be taught and researched. And literally throwing a baseball, throwing a football, throwing a softball, throwing anything is the same basic stuff. So too long of a story. I just started for myself, and in the journey found out how to help others also. And that ultimately is what Mustard is going to be doing.
So it's not just baseball with Mustard. It's
yeah. If you
as well.
You're exactly right, Brooke. If you throw something or swing at something, all right, Mustard is eventually going to be able to, everything that I know, everything that my surrounding group knows will be on a cell phone in a deliverable that will enable everyone to access elite information. We're democratizing the information and instruction of youngsters around the world.
How did you and Drew Brees meet?
Okay, well, it goes back a long time ago. Cam Cameron and Drew Brees were with the San Diego Chargers at the same time. Cam Cameron was their offensive coordinator, and he had boys that played baseball. So I met Cam through baseball. And then Cam said, "Do you ever do anything with football players?" And I said, "Well, we've got them in the computer. We've got Montana and Marino and Berline. We've captured so we can analyze it, but I really don't work with quarterbacks." He said, "Well, I've got a young quarterback who's going to be really good. I'd love to have you meet and see where you guys could go with a little information exchange." So that was the beginning. And then that season is the year he had the horrible injuries to his right shoulder. And Dr. Andrews did his surgery. Dr. Andrews has been a 50-year buddy of mine. So when Drew was done with the surgery, Dr. Andrews called and said, "He's put back together, but I don't think he's going to ever throw a football again."
Wow.
So Drew and I just started doing stuff, trying things. We had no clue what we were doing, but it turned out we fixed his shoulder, and the rest is history.
And just an amazing story for Drew in general to have a surgery like that and still be able to come back at that age. So you've worked with him for a long time now. What maybe makes him unique or different than some of the other quarterback personalities you've worked with?
Well, the one thing I can say about all of these Hall of Famers, now, if you're a quarterback in the NFL, even if you're a backup quarterback, you're pretty good. You're pretty special at what you do. But the elite of the elite, the Hall of Famers, and I've worked with Hall of Famers in baseball, golf, and football, they have this genetically predisposed need to get better every day at something. And we've identified mechanics, functional strength, mental emotional management, and then nutrition and sleep for recovery as the 4 legs of the health and performance table. And so every day, every call, every season, every month, Drew is on this stuff like white on rice, figuring out a way to get better at all 4 of those cornerstones. So Tom Brady is a different teach than Drew is. Drew is a different teach than Nolan Ryan was. but they all look to get 1% better. And fortunately for our group, we've got something we can help them to get better with.
Yeah, Drew Brees' competitive nature is second to none. That guy at anything, whether it's, we just talked to his teammates this week too, especially with this potentially being his last year, that he was competitive if you were throwing trash into a trash can or anything.
Yeah.
So with that, and with him being competitive in just every little asset of his life, is there maybe a favorite drill or workout that you guys have done? And I know you guys got pretty creative during quarantine this year too.
Yeah, you've done your homework. Good for you. What we did this offseason, he never even touched a football. He was doing, weighted balls, tennis rackets, lacrosse sticks. He was paddling on a surfboard in his swimming pool. He did all kinds of seemingly strange stuff, but all, reinforced the movements required to throw a football and the strength required to support those movements. And I actually felt him going into camp was the best shape he's been in probably the last 20 years.
And you saw him after the surgery, and I believe that was 06 to now 2020. How have you seen him progress over the years? And if you could, it seems like age is just a number within your program. It's about arm strength and health. Where would you say that he is at in his career right now?
Well, part of the research that we uncovered and proved was all things being equal, and if you follow process, there's no reason an athlete shouldn't be able to do at age 45 what he did at 25. But there's extenuating circumstances, getting hurt, playing on a team that, so he always being banged up or not being able to recover properly. In other words, there's a lot of variables that affect outcome. But what I've seen with Drew is that he manages his process as good as any athlete I've ever worked with anywhere. And his commitment to excellence just isn't on the athletic field. And if you know Drew, he's a family man, he's spiritual. His friends are friends for life, and the affiliation he calls football, all those things kind of integrate, and his gestalt, or what makes him up, is he's unique. He might be the most authentic athlete that I've ever run across. He's like, if you didn't know he played football, he's just a dude. He's just like a dad. If you didn't know that he was married, you think of him as this is the kind of guy like my daughter to me. I mean, you look for and you're in the business. You look at people and you observe people, and there's a lot of false hustle out there. Well, and I see you roll your eyes. I feel the same way. Authenticity is, it's not a strong suit for a lot of people. Drew is very authentic.
I do want to touch on what you just mentioned previously. You said in this year he's been, arm strength wise and efficiency, one of the best he's been heading into the season. Why do you say that compared to maybe what he was doing back 10 years ago?
Because we measure, we measure, we quantify, we work on weak links and inefficiencies in movement. And going to camp in August last fall, I felt I think he turned 42 last week or 2 weeks ago, going into his 42nd birthday. And this season, I thought he was physically the best prepared he'd ever been. And his wife came out and kind of, he's been hurt. None of it was his fault, but he got crunched and jumped on, and hasn't been playing at 100% health-wise all year. But I honestly believe, as he does, that if he hadn't been as in good a shape going to camp that he was in August, he probably would not have survived this season. So hindsight's always 20/20. The one thing about Drew he'll go out and try to beat you if he has a bloody stump for a leg. That's just Drew.
Yeah, and I was actually about to bring that up. Brittany's post, the torn
Yeah.
rotator cuff sticks out. Given Brees statistically, minus this playoff game this year, has been so efficient with the broken ribs, with the torn rotator cuff, does that go back to the mechanics that are taught with you that even with those injuries, if he's thinking about the things that you guys went through, he's able to still perform?
Yeah. So this is probably, I've tried to explain this to a number of my physical therapy and doctor friends. Say he worked 100, he always works 100% of effort, but say his conditioning was 20% better than it's ever been going into the season. And the injuries that he went through would have caused him to lose 20% of his efficiencies. Well, if he's over prepared by 20% and the injuries took him down 20%, he went out at 100% of what he'd been doing in the past. And that's why he's been so consistent. Okay? Did that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Okay.
And I know him and Tom are good friends, and I've seen them work out a couple times together with you. Do they like to work out? Do these veteran quarterbacks like to get together, specifically these two guys, when they're working with you?
They do. Now some of them prefer, like Drew will work anywhere, anytime, any place. He'll work with a bunch of 12-year-olds, work with his kids. He'll work with other players on other teams. He's a very social workout guy. Brady, on the other hand, keeps the group pretty small, if not by himself. His number one priority would be just himself and his receivers. But guys like Drew, those elite guys, the Matt Ryans and the Rogers, those guys at that level, they don't mind being around each other as long as the other quarterback doesn't see where your weaknesses are and what you're working on. So it's like playing poker with your buddies. It's fun to play, but you don't want to let them know how you play.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And a lot of people like to try to put an end date. When is Tom Brady and Drew Brees going to retire? When is their age going to catch up with them? Father time. What would you say, knowing working with them and knowing the health they are in, to those people that say, hey, they've maybe got 1 year or this is it?
Well, I'll tell you this, they'll retire when they know they can't be as good as they're supposed to be. Their standards, the things that they hold themselves to perform, they know when they're not reaching those standards. And there's a lot of speculation right now. Has he announced his retirement? Is Drew going to do this? I think he's figuring out right now where he is. And I've heard the words, he's at peace with where he is. And if football was the only thing in his life, he'd probably try to play forever. But remember, he's just as devoted as a family man, spiritual, the whole 9 yards. And then there's a difference between, and I can talk about this with expertise. I was released 3 times and fired twice. I know what it's like to get kicked out. Drew is going to be able to pick when he wants to leave. That is a big difference. And then I think everybody's aware that he's got the NBC broadcasting thing on the table too. So it's not like he's going to leave football and right off into the sunset. And he's filtering right now. He's considering all options, what they look like and what they feel like. And Drew, being Drew, it'll be 100% commitment when he ends up making the decision.
Now, I know you guys are neighbors, and he and his wife and kids just went back to their home in San Diego. Do you have any plans to see him in the next few weeks, or have you guys spoke to each other?
Yeah, I actually, we were with those guys on Sunday, on game day. And then I was, really fortunate enough to spend most of the day on Monday with them. And I flew back Monday afternoon. I'm pretty sure that Brittany and the kids flew back later that evening, and Drew flew home yesterday, Wednesday. So we're all out here on the West Coast, and I just stay away until Drew makes the call. The over and under in my mind is I'll hear from Drew by Sunday.
And you think you will know whether or not he will be either staying or going?
Yeah, he'll call with his plan, and then we'll kind of match up, see how schedules fit, what the priorities are. I have a sneaking suspicion that I'll be working with his kids before too long. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but that would be my bet.
And if this were to be his last year, and this is the last question I will ask, but if this were to be his last year in the NFL, do you think he would be satisfied and happy with the overall 20 years? Not the last playoff game, not the 3 interceptions that I know a lot of people want to talk about, but just what he's been able to do in the 20 years in the NFL.
I think, he's never satisfied when it's not perfect, but what we have been preaching to each other for the last 17 years is if you go to bed every night knowing that you've done everything you could possibly do to be the best you could be, you sleep tight and start again tomorrow. And I'll guarantee you, in his thinking right now and in his feelings right now, he's kind of matching up. Did I do it right? What would I change? Is one more year going to make a difference? Will he's playing all the what if stuff. And whatever he comes up with, it will be well thought out, it will be authentic, and it'll be with the idea is the past is great to remember, but all that matters is today and working toward tomorrow. That's kind of where he is right now.
And hopefully you guys can golf more now. do some less competitive things.
Yeah, he's a golfer. He's really good.
Okay.
And I just, I'm a duffer. But we've never been out on the field in any setting where we didn't laugh our fannies off. And that's something, it's important. Like I'm wearing a mustard hat right now. And the idea behind mustard, I don't know if people are aware of or you're aware of, but 80% of the young male and female athletes around the world quit by age 14 because they're not having fun. So what we've kind of identified is the power of play is off the charts. And being an athlete allows you to experience failure and adversity and all the things that are character builders. And it's one of the few things left, sports are one of the few things left to humanize artificial intelligence. And Drew is a partner with me in Mustard. And we literally want kids to play sports at least through high school. And what I was laughing when Tom and Drew were on the field at the Dome the other night.
Oh, that was beautiful.
It was like, people don't realize it was like looking at two 12-year-olds talking. They may be 42, 43 years old and Hall of Famers, but they're really just big kids. And hence the Mustard, getting an app out there on a cell phone where parents and their kids can get exactly the same information and instruction that Drew and Tom get, have just as much fun as Drew, and have it be done in their own backyard with mom and dad. It democratizes everything that the elite are getting. We're putting it out to the everyday. So I would encourage you, I don't know if you have kids or brothers or sisters that play softball, whoever, I would encourage all of them to go to Team Mustard, MSTRD, teammustard.com. And that's kind of a landing place to see where Mustard is going. It's really exciting stuff. I think, I know that we've helped a lot of athletes. I know that, especially Drew was a large contributor to what we do. This is like having a little bit of Drew in every bit of information that's exchanged out there. That's my gut on the whole thing.
I think that's important too, to know that this is the same technique and technology that these guys and future Hall of Famers are using, and you can use when you're in T-ball and Little League.
So that's perfect. What you just said is perfect. How many kids quit and go home at age 14 that could have been a Drew Brees or a Nolan Ryan? That's what we're trying to do with Mustard. And it's these superstars are paying it forward by helping us put Mustard out there.